Pinpoint asteroids in orbit, then hurl y'all thousands of miles an hour towards it.
In this flat earth debunking community, there are many characters. One such character fancies himself smarter and more knowledgeable than every scientist, physicist, astronomer, well, to put it simply, every smart person in the world. So smart that he's even convinced himself that he's debunked Albert Einstein's special and general relativity. He spends most of his days in Discord servers proclaiming his victory and his disdain for anti-flat earthers, where other, even dumber flat earthers hang on his every word as if it's gospel. That flat earther is none other than Witsit Gets It.
We were all told that the Earth is a ball that's moving through space. That's a bit exaggerated, of course, but anyway, so the question is the Earth moving? I wanted to throw this in here. This is hilarious to me. There's a quote from Einstein: "The gift of fantasy has meant more to me than my talent for observing or absorbing positive knowledge." And that's because the heliocentric model is a fantasy, hence why it changes every couple days.
It changes because with new technology, men have made many updates to our current knowledge of the universe, as opposed to flat earthers who would rather regress all of our scientific knowledge back to the Stone Age. The only thing Witsit is really good at is completely misrepresenting what people say.
Another quote from him: "I never made one of my discoveries through the process of rational thinking." What is it about cosmology that would completely dismiss rationale? I don't know. That seems weird. I covered this the last time. I'm going to kind of breeze through this part, but this is the infamous Michelson-Morley. It's called the most famous failed experiment in history. I showed actually that the Earth wasn't moving.
The Michelson-Morley experiment was designed to detect the motion of the Earth through the luminiferous ether, which it failed to do, meaning there was no ether, which led Einstein to create his theory of relativity and the idea that light travels at the same speed in all directions regardless of its relative speed. Witsit seems to think because this experiment failed to detect the motion of the Earth through the ether, therefore the Earth isn't revolving around the sun, all while continuing to ignore all the modern-day devices that are specifically designed to detect Earth's motion.
Here's an infamous observation. It's called the Black Swan. The horizon should be 1.2 miles away. The camera was just over the water. You see the horizon's beyond the furthest platform there, almost 10 miles away, which would require a radius of 264,000 miles. It's just weird. I mean, people just say the word refraction. They don't understand it. They don't know what terrestrial refraction is or how we guide it. They just say it. They just say a word. It's like a religion, you know, like you get words and phrases and you chant them from the stands and then you pass around the donation.
And of course, the Black Swan. Witsit already knows that this image that the flat earthers have dubbed the Black Swan is heavily refracted. And anyone with a knowledge about refraction can spot the telltale signs just by looking at the cranes on the far left. So, what you're saying, Witsit, is that there is no refraction in the Black Swan? Because I do remember you saying this.
I'm claiming that you haven't even actually accounted for all the variables, and you're touting your trigonometry that literally hand waves dismiss one of the most important variables when it comes to perception, which is refraction.
And this.
Refraction always happens. That's why it's important.
And this.
Refraction, which we immediately and adamantly claim is always present because there's temperature fluctuation and atmospheric conditions that are consistently affecting what you perceive.
And this.
Well, if you can't adequately account for refraction, you can't make a claim about the apparent location. Now,
and this.
Refraction increases proportionate to the distance, and never in your dissecting of the observations do you even account for refraction that we know for a fact to be present. And refraction, because you're increasing refractive effect proportionate to distance. So the more atmosphere you have in between you, the more refraction you have, because the more atmosphere that's there. When you just throw refraction out entirely, invoking the furthest point away in the image and saying that you don't have to account for refraction and making the baseless assertion it doesn't move it because you showed us some really not very great images where they look to be generally the same is laughable. Anyway, here is a first radio transmission sent across the Atlantic Ocean. Marconi, they told him that he wouldn't be able to send it more than 200 miles because the curvature of the Earth would block it. He actually sent it 2,200 miles successful, the first transmission, using a horizontal propagation over the ocean. Since then, we've actually done them, and even he did them as far as 10,000 miles.
And here we have Witsit once again completely misrepresenting things. In the same article that he's reading here, if you scroll down and just read right here, it says clearly, ironically, detractors of the project were correct when they declared that radio waves would not follow the curvature of the Earth, as Marconi believed. In fact, Marconi's transatlantic radio signal had been headed into space when it was reflected off the ionosphere and bounced back down towards Canada. This is a well-known fact to people who are experts in radio transmission, which Witsit clearly is not.
So, plane survey data, right? So plane surveying is a survey in which the Earth's surface is assumed to be a plane and the curvature of the Earth is ignored. Survey works up to 100 square miles, and our surveys that are up to 100 square miles are treated as a plane. So this is how we actually make measurements on the Earth. This is how we have those maps you guys are so proud of.
Yes, Witsit, you're actually right about this. But again, you're ignoring the other type of surveying. The type that actually takes the curvature of the Earth into account. It's called geodetic surveying. And I like how you conveniently didn't mention this type of surveying during this debate. Well, I kind of understand why, but then you would just have to deny what surveying manuals say, and how they clearly say geodetic surveys of large areas are affected by and must take into account the curvature of the Earth, location on Earth's surface, and elevation above sea level.
Here's something seen from 163 miles away. There should be 10,000.
Whoa, hold on. You went through that kind of fast. Let's just take a look at that for a second. First of all, I love it when flat earthers use Google Earth, which is a globe, to measure distances on Earth. Then when you ask them about distances in the southern hemisphere, they claim that distances can't be measured accurately over water. Right. Anyway, if you take a look at this observation, right off the bat, you already know that he took these screenshots from some other flat earther and didn't actually fact check it. You know damn well Witsit did not travel all the way to France to make this observation himself. It's kind of blurry even on his original presentation, so trying to pinpoint the actual location is impossible. And there's no way the observer's height is exactly 1,000 feet. And I'm sure Witsit didn't once try and verify it.
Some curvature, feet of curvature blocking these mountains, and you can see them. And in fact, you can see them once the sun goes up behind them.
And here, how do we know exactly what mountains we're looking at? I mean, it says Canigou, but how can we be so sure? It also says 10,297 feet. But again, how do we know which of these mountains we're actually seeing? There's also another mountain about 11,000 feet high in this same mountain range. How do we know that's not the mountain we're seeing?
And you see the outline, the silhouette of it. These should be completely blocked. Why can't we see the mountains?
Okay, this one's great. So here we have the sun behind mountains, supposedly over a flat plain. So we have a straight line from my eyes to the mountains, then to the sun. So does that mean that the bottom of the sun is lower than 10,000 feet?
See, we just went out and tested the Earth, bro. It's not what they said. Don't make it awkward, right? Like, here's Chicago from like 70 plus miles away.
And again, are you saying that the bottom of the sun is lower than the building? How would this observation look if drawn orthographically over a flat plane? Yeah, that doesn't make sense. I can hear all the flat earthers now. Well, you just don't understand perspective. As if that thing we learned in 3rd grade art class is super difficult to understand.
Here's a military document, propagation of electromagnetic fields over a flat Earth for ground weapon systems. It's actually a weapon system the military uses. And they treat it as a flat Earth, a dielectric plane specifically.
This is just a case of Witsit seeing the title of a paper and saying, ooh, flat Earth. Listen, the military in no way treats the Earth as flat when we literally use GPS to track our troops' movements, as well as set up VSATs to communicate with units stationed all over the globe.
Here's a laser test. We see far beyond the curvature of the Earth, like we always do.
Oh, a laser test. Was refraction taken into account, like you said?
Refraction always happens. That's why it's important.
How could you have things disappear bottom up if the Earth was flat? Well, you can have a lensing effect. Right here, you will see that the sun on the right is moving towards you up above the table, but it looks like it's coming from the bottom up, from behind the mountains.
Funny thing about that test using a Fresnel lens to mimic a sunset, it also shows the sun changing in angular size, which is something we never see in reality. So, good try, Witsit.
So it's very simple. Here's the sun. It actually disappears into the horizon, not behind a physical curved horizon.
And we're literally watching the sun drop below the horizon, which is below our feet. How does that work on flat Earth again? Oh, that's right. You don't have an explanation. You're a free thinker who thinks for themselves and doesn't believe anything in the mainstream narrative. Which basically means you reject reality and make it up. Once again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you like this video. And check out the rest of my videos if you're interested. And as always, peace.